Today is April 26th. We're starting the Public Safety Commission meeting at 6:28 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by the Public Safety Commission. If anyone other than the city or the commission is recording the meeting, you must notify the chair at this time. Is anybody else recording the meeting? Okay, thank you. Mass General Law 30A, Section 20, no person shall address the meeting of the public body without permission of the chair, and all persons shall, at the request of the chair, be silent. No person shall disrupt the proceedings of a meeting of the public body. If after clear warning from the chair, a person continues to disrupt the proceedings, the chair may order the person to withdraw from the meeting, and if the person does not withdraw, the chair may authorize a constable or other officer to remove the person from the meeting. I will take a roll call for attendance. Commissioner Illinois. Here. Present. Thank you. Commissioner Clark. Present. Commissioner Jarvis. Here. Commissioner Moscaratolo, I'm here. We have a quorum. We also have Deputy William Gordon with us. Mark from AMR, can you pronounce your last name?
Laprade.
Say it again.
Laprade.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Thank you for being here. We have Chief Strahan, Captain Peter McGuire. Okay. I don't believe the mayor has joined us on Zoom. Mayor, if you have, could you speak? I think she was trying, but I don't think she is at this point.
I spoke to the mayor.
Okay, that's fine. All right. All right, thank you, folks. We're gonna move on to public comments. We'll do local public comment first. If any folks here locally want to speak, now's the time.
Thank you on the list.
Yeah, let me get it, sorry. Just a lot going on. All right, sorry folks. Locally, we have Jesus. Jesus, would you like to speak this time? Again, I'm not going to use a timer. I'm just going to ask people to be respectful of the time, and you know you have a few minutes to speak.
Thank you.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Jesus Leva, 32 High Street, apartment 6, Greenfield, Mass. I actually want to begin my public comment by paraphrasing what Ed Jarvis said at the end of the last Public Safety Commission meeting, which said public service is a business. You have customers, and if your customers are unhappy, they're not going to fund you. Again, it's paraphrased. It's not exactly what he said, obviously. But I really think that a member of the Public Safety Commission should have been at last week's City Council meeting. There were capital requests that were made from the police department where councilors had a lot of questions. And I think a member of the Public Safety Commission answering those questions would have been very helpful. In particular, one thing that came up was there was a $500,000 capital request for the building. And councilors had the question of why that was being requested when there was already $900,000 that had been approved that was largely untouched. I spoke at public comment in support of that capital request, and I felt a little ignorant not knowing the answer to that question. It just felt strange. I was probably actually the only person at public comment who spoke favorably about either the capital requests or restoring the police budget. There was quite a lot of people there who were happy to look at taking away those capital requests and or operating budget of the police department in favor of supporting the schools for either practical reasons or political ones. And if this is a business, you are the complaint department. There is a long list of very clearly stated complaints, And this commission hasn't addressed them. I've had the opportunity to speak to Chief Haig and Chief Gordon, along with a couple of counselors, concerning some of these complaints. And I thought there was at least an understanding of an outline for how they might be addressed going forward, but that never happened in the form of any sort of a public meeting. So that's, I think, still an open question for everybody. And I am honestly asking you if you can address some of these things tonight, not at a different future meeting, but tonight, because these questions, these issues have been raised many times over the last year, and they are at least partially at the heart of why city councilors and residents are perfectly okay with potentially not funding capital requests from the police department or the operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Is there anybody left here locally in the room that wants to speak? Okay, is there anybody out in Zoom world that would like to speak? Again, I cannot see you, so you just have to be verbal and let me know if you'd like to speak at this time. I'll ask one more time. Is there anybody in Zoom that would like to speak? All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on. First on the agenda, I have approval of the meeting minutes from the March 22nd meeting. I want to apologize to my fellow commissioners that I got the meeting minutes that are lengthy, 7 pages out late. So I'm thinking we could take a motion to look at those meetings and pass them the next meeting if other commissioners want to comment on that.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes at the next meeting.
Can I have a second on that? All right, thank you. We'll do that. We'll do 2 sets next meeting. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to new business. We have a guest here tonight that I want to introduce, Kara Klempner. She is from, you have a long title. She is from the Domestic Violence Intervention Project Coordinator, right, for the Northwest District Attorney's Office, Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Unit. She had contacted me and initially wanted to ask about coming to the meeting, and I asked her if she would like to say a few words. So we'd like to invite you up and introduce yourself and educate us on your departments.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having me here. Yeah, as Commissioner Muscari told, as said, yeah, it's purely informational. I just wanted to share with everybody because our office hasn't had a coordinator in this position for some time. So now that I've been there for a couple months, I'm starting to get out to visit police stations in Franklin and Hampshire counties, plus Athol. So those are our partners in the Domestic Violence Intervention Project. And I can leave these brochures which just explain, you know, basically the goals, and I'll just read through some of those. And if people would like this at the end, feel free. So the DVIP is an early intervention model designed to coordinate efforts of police, advocates, court personnel, and domestic violence intervention programs. So the idea is to reduce the high risk of domestic violence, so mitigate risk in domestic violence situations, and improve delivery of services to survivors and their children. To provide direct contact and crisis intervention with victims of abuse immediately following an abusive incident. So when police respond to a call, an on-call advocate is available for the victim to speak with. And so police have an additional support in that an advocate from Behavioral Health Network or NELQUIT, who are contacted through our messaging service, can run through with victims a risk assessment and offer them options for how to protect themselves. We can also, through this, through the Domestic Violence Intervention Project, have been able to make referrals to our high-risk team for further assessment and for safety planning. So that's basically, what I wanted to present tonight. And if anyone has any questions, feel free.
Thank you, Kara. The commissioners have any questions? So you work locally here in Greenfield? Did you say?
I'm based out of the office in Greenfield.
Okay, great. And what's your communication path to the local Greenfield Police Department? I mean, how do you engage with them? Is there engagement between the two departments?
Yeah, the partnership is very active. All police in, like I said, Franklin and Hampshire counties plus Athol have the on-call advocates available to them on weekday evenings and 24 hours on weekends and Monday holidays. So whenever they are on a call involving domestic violence of any type, they will call and utilize this project as a support for the victim in those situations. So they receive a monthly schedule from us of who our on-call advocates are. They attend our domestic violence task force meetings. And I engage with them. And if they want a training, we're available to go and help them improve on high-risk training, high-risk assessment in domestic violence situations. So yeah, we have ongoing communication.
And just a quick, for instance, so the local police department are out at a location where there might be a victim, they contact you. Do you come to the scene? Is this work that's done after the incident? Do you do it by phone? Like, can you give examples of how, like, the actual interaction is at the moment? How does that work?
So once they handle the situation, and if it's safe to call the victim, the advocate will call the victim. And they don't attend the scene, but they can meet the victim at the police station to help with an application for an emergency restraining order. And they can provide a victim's information to our victim witness unit so that they can be met in court the next day and follow up with paperwork.
And do you follow the victim and give assistance after the fact, like throughout the whole process?
If they want to work with us, once they are in court, they can have a victim witness advocate with them throughout their whole process. Because as you know, when a victim decides to end, an abusive situation, that is the most dangerous time. So we have supports in place for them to do safety planning and to follow through on court to get a restraining order.
Okay. Karen, thank you for that. That was very educational. We greatly appreciate it. Do the commissioners have any other questions?
I have one question, and that is, I know what we're talking about with abusive relations, but is there any emphasis on self-abuse situations?
This project in particular involves supporting victims in domestic violence situations. So intimate partners, spouses, former spouses, sexual assault, but self-harm doesn't fall within this. That would be something that the police departments are using a co-response model, and I'm sure that would be something they would bring their clinician, on that type of a call to help with that situation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Very well, Kara, thank you for joining us, and you're welcome back anytime.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. We'll start with Mark and go through AMR general updates. You have the floor, sir.
Sorry, good evening. How's everyone doing? I'm just going to pass out March's numbers and I'll bring them up to you guys. So there is a back end to this. Chief Strahan also has the full file. It's 28 pages long. So it actually has every single call in it and what ended up happening in that call, whether it was transported or whatnot. So if you guys want that information, certainly we can forward it to you. So up top, you'll see in the month of March, we did 217 transports, 70 calls were dry runs. The definition of a dry run would be the crew arrives on scene and whether it doesn't result in the transport to the hospital. So whether that's a lift assist or a refusal, but the crew makes some type of patient contact. There were 67 canceled calls. So canceled calls would be before we arrive on scene, the police department or the fire department cancels us before we arrive and make patient contact, or maybe there wasn't a patient involved. And then 51 calls were what are categorized as lost calls. So that would be past calls. So that would mean we did not have a resource available in the city and we had to pass the call. And the majority of all those calls do go to Greenfield Fire to respond. And the next box would be determinant level. So all calls are EMD'd or emergency medical dispatched. So basically it's like triaging when someone calls 911. The call taker triages the call, and then depending on what the person's saying on the line, it gets categorized. It kind of goes from the bottom to top. So E level, the echo level calls are the most severe. Mostly those are cardiac arrests. And then going D all the way to A are going to be your really priority calls to your less severe calls. And then as you can see, there was a total of 354 responses throughout the city. And the average response time was 9 minutes and 57 seconds.
Thank you, Mark.
No problem.
Any questions for the commissioners?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question. How many units do you have out on the streets to handle 357 calls? Is it one ambulance unit, 2 teams? How many teams is it generally?
So right now, the contract with Greenfield, we have 2 contracted ALS trucks, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we also staff at least 1 BLS truck, or we try to, and sometimes 2, and that's usually during the daytime. That is to help with, we also have the Bay State Health contract, so that's usually to help with the Bay State Health discharging, but also they do supplement during the daytime if there is increased call volume for 911s, if they are available.
So the 51 calls that were lost went to our fine gentleman next to you, is that correct?
The majority of them probably, I mean, we certainly have that data where we can get that to you, but the majority of them will probably go to Greenfield Fire.
So who do the calls come into for you to be dispatched? Do they come into the dispatch center, our dispatch center, or do you have your own? How does that work?
I believe they go to Greenfield PD and then they're forwarded to us. I believe so.
So do they automatically get forwarded to AMR first? And then after that, if they can't handle it, goes to our fire department? How does that work? Either of you can say.
I'll handle that one. So the way that our 911 system works for EMS is someone calls 911 and comes to our PSAP. As soon as it's determined that it's a medical call, it's immediately transferred to AMR for what we call emergency medical dispatching, where they take questions and they set the priority level of the call that was explained earlier. Our dispatchers stay on the phone while this is happening the majority of the time, and they are taught to key off on certain words, certain conditions. So if it's a high acuity call, they dispatch the fire department right away. If it doesn't sound like a high acuity call, but falls into C, D, or above level call, then the backup is that AMR starts their rig and calls our dispatch and says, start fire as first response. But typically our dispatchers key that up. If it goes to AMR and they're unavailable for whatever reason, the rigs are tied up, they're doing transfers or on other medical calls, then they call back to our PSAP and request Greenfield Fire to go primary. If it's a high acuity call, we're probably going anyways, and they just advise us that, hey, your primary, you'll need the transport. So we are working on some new solutions with AMR. They're integrating a new CAD system that just went online within the last month. We're going to have a CAD to CAD link at some point, and So we're gonna improve that, but that's basically how our system works today.
Thank you for that information. And thank you for working together, all three teams on this type of stuff. 4 teams dispatched too. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, we will move on. Thank you, Mark. Do you have anything else, Mark?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I actually do have to go down to Springfield to get on
Yes,
shift.
I
So
understand your own
yeah,
call.
no
Thank you
problem.
thank you for being here and having patience with our technical delays.
It happens, no problem. Take care.
Okay, we're gonna move on to dispatch updates, if we could.
Dispatch updates right now, we lost one dispatcher to the police academy, so we were down to 9 dispatchers. We were able to put on another dispatcher, so we are up to 10, but that last one is training, and she's brand new at this. She has no experience, so it's going to take a little bit of time to get her spun up. We do have 1 medical leave right now. And we have Cindy Hunter is our acting dispatch supervisor. Outside of that, we have an equipment issue where this company called Equiture records our 911 calls, and they also record our radios and our business phones. The state 911 decided to get out of the business of recording anything but 911. So they gave us notice that we are going to have to buy our own equipment to record our radios and our telephones, which is basically mandatory. We're working on a project right now to be able to get that, and we're hoping to fund that through the 911 grant. The dispatch center, we've been meeting with the actually, I have the document right here. One of the things that Jesus mentioned was the building project, and the big part of the building project is the communication center. One of the things that was mentioned in that is that there has been no work done for that dispatch center, and I take offense to that, because what I'm going to read to you is the work that has been done towards that project. So bear with me because it's going to take a little bit, but on March 10th, 2022, we met with Central Maintenance and IT to discuss the dispatch center move, because we have to coordinate that with IT and Central Maintenance. And that was before the funding was met with City Council. City Council met that funding request in May of 2022. And then, but we couldn't spend the money until after July 1st. July 6th, 2022, I'll just skip to 2022s because it's going to be redundant. We sent an email to IT and Central Maintenance confirming that we needed to go ahead and set up the coordination for the move. So Central Maintenance was able to come in and move some electricity that needed to be done, and that was done. On July 22nd, there was an email to Laura Phelps, which is our procurement officer at the town hall, asking for the status on the dispatch project's blueprints, advising that Central Maintenance has completed their work to accommodate the move to the roll call room. On January 26th, we finally received that response from Laura Phelps, and on August 23rd, we emailed Laura Phelps to see if we had any luck selecting the engineering firm, because that's the first step. On the 23rd, she came back and she said that the town has selected H2M. H2M is, I'm not sure if it's the same name, is the same company that has been doing the fire department. Now, we understand that the fire department at that point was the absolute 100% priority, so we didn't rush them. However, on October 14th, we did email to HTM expressing concerns relative to delays of getting them to respond. On the 18th, October 18th, we emailed Laura Phelps asking for assistance in contacting H2M because we received no response from them. Again, we understand that they were working on the fire project. On October 20th, we received the response from Laura Phelps asking for details relative to the lack of response. Yeah. On the 19th, we got an email from Katrina. Somebody is
Muting,
Can you hear me now? Counselor Forgy?
Yes, I can.
All right,
Thank you.
we mistakenly muted everybody.
Okay, sorry, folks. We're having some technical issues. Deputy Chief Gordon was reviewing the updates on the progress for the dispatch center. I don't think you need to continue with all those details.
Yeah, so as you can see, multiple times a week, I mean, multiple times a month, if not multiple times a week, we were, emailing, going back and forth, trying to get this project off the ground. So it's not the fault of the person that was, we put Lieutenant Dodge in charge of the project. And to be accused of not working on the project is just not fair to him. He worked on it.
Did the commissioners have any questions about dispatch?
Yeah, just maybe one, Deputy. Could I suggest that Lieutenant Dodge puts an update on the webpage or something like that so people can maybe look to see where the progress is being made? That might help divert some of the animosity that things aren't being done or people aren't being informed, maybe. I don't know, like on your Facebook page,
Yep.
something like that, maybe just an idea to try to keep people informed.
We can. We met with them earlier this week, and we have a preliminary plan, architect plan. Well, not the architect plan, but the preliminary plan for the architect, who will then come in and do the next stage. So again, we're hoping to finally see, walls being knocked down in July. We have set up the dispatch move to our roll call room starting in July, for about the first week of July.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Illinois, you have a question?
So there's two issues here. Accusations that you're not doing anything, so somebody keeps waving. And who's the follow through responsible party in City Hall?
We've been working, I don't want to point fingers, but we've been working with Laura Phelps, who is the procurement officer, and she's where all the money has to go through.
Okay. Is that the hang up?
That seemed to be part of the hang up. However, in August, she was able to hook up with H2M, which is the company that the town asked us to work with. And like I said, they had a priority. You know, the fire department was 100% the priority of that company. And they needed to work on that project. So it did push us back, not to our fault, not to their fault, because they needed to work on that project. With the town needed to get off of the ground. So we are working now with them. We meet with them now once every 2 weeks.
The company.
The company, yes. And projects take time. I'm sure the fire chief can explain that. He worked on years on the fire station. You know, so
Is it getting better now?
yeah, it is getting better now. Yep.
So do they have an official schedule for you, the architect? Is there?
No, not at this time. Right now, that we're meeting with once every other week. And they're hoping, the last I talked to them, which was 2 weeks ago, I was off on this week, was that they were hoping to be able to get the RFPs in May. And then once the RFPs come in, we see the price, we agree to the price, we pick the contractor. We're hoping that the contractor will be able to get to it within 30 days of that, which puts us in July.
So is Todd your representative in meeting with H2M?
Correct. He's our project lead for our liaison.
So you've got things pretty well administrated that way, right?
Correct.
You're not having a problem there.
No. We're not having any problem at all. I just, like I said, there's some people that, you know, accused us of not doing anything and not getting anywhere with this project, which is just not true. These projects take a long time. It's hard to get contractors. You know, they're very busy right now. And you know, I have 3 pages of emails going back and forth and meetings going back and forth. We have been working on the project since the first week of July.
Do you have anything like a building committee or is there any committee that?
Yes. So Todd Dodge is in charge of the committee. We have a dispatcher, Cindy Hunter, who is on the committee. Laura Phelps is on the committee, and then one of the members of the contractor, H2M.
Okay, any other questions for the commissioners?
No, I think that all the stuff that you say, we know it's not. I think we have to back away a minute and just see how you do next month. And if you're having problems, let us know.
We were having problems in the fall, but they were understandable problems. The company was busy on a priority project for the city.
I think that moving forward on any situations like this, the challenges have to be brought up to multiple groups and multiple people so we could help you, push this along. I don't usually do this, and I don't want a tit for tat back and forth, but I will recognize the public. I can do that as the chair, so I will recognize the public. I think, did you want to say something? Or, okay, just keep it respectful and short. I don't want to debate back and forth here.
It's not something. So I want to direct my comment to Deputy Chief Gordon. This was about the meeting at the City Council. I don't think I want to specifically speak for myself. I understand you guys are making progress on the project. The question at City Council meeting was why there was a capital request for an additional $500,000 for the project when the $900,000 was already allocated, had mostly been unspent. That's really the clarification. I don't think anybody was suggesting you guys weren't working on the project, and I think we really need to be better at communicating what's going on. And again, this is the reason why I'm saying public safety commissioners or members of the police department probably should have been at that meeting to explain this to counselors, and so counselors could explain their concerns to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any comment to the talking about the budget for this? And I know.
I don't want to get back and forth. We went to the Ways and Means Committee. That's where we made our presentation. The questions were asked by the counselors at the Ways and Means Committee. We explained that to the Ways and Means Committee, and they made comments on the floor that, we brought those issues up, so they heard us. I'm not
Was-
looking to fight. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, project has been on the ground since the conception. There has been delays, understandable delays. We're okay with the delays. I know that money has been spent. We've already spent $29,000 on the plans for the dispatch and $29,000 on the plans for the water infiltration. The companies come in, they come out. Work has been done, so I just don't understand why people think that we haven't been doing the work when we explained it all along. And we had a meeting with you last month explaining,
Yes.
updating. So we've said the updates.
Was there an ask for additional money for these projects?
There was an additional capital expense request
For these particular
for
projects?
not these two, but for an additional project of the locker room to make a gender neutral locker room.
And that was the $500,000? Okay,
Correct.
so, because I remember attending the meeting and I was a little bit confused about the dollars and cents. So there's money that's been already allocated for this project to upgrade the area, right, for the dispatchers and a few other things, water things. And then you asked for an additional $500 for the locker rooms.
500,000.
500,000.
Yes.
Okay.
And there was some confusion. We understand the confusion that we already talked about those locker rooms the year before, but because the money wasn't spent, we wanted to continue that conversation with the counselors, saying that we want to make sure that that's still appropriated. There may have been some miscommunication on that. That's for my boss and the town council president and the mayor to discuss. So.
Okay, so financially, I think we're set. It was money, 900,000 for this particular dispatches project and some water and work outside, and then there was an additional ask for locker rooms.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, we're gonna move on. Thank you. We're gonna go on to, we might as well stick with this and go right into the police department general updates if you'd like.
I want to try to share my screen.
I don't know if we'll be able to see it.
Yeah, I'm not a host.
It's probably something that we can't see as commissioners tonight.
Okay, so anyways, I was hoping I could just touch the button and it would work. Can you make me host? If you make me host, then yeah.
I will do my best.
It would come out better if you can see what I'm talking about.
Okay, I made you a co-host.
So I guess it's not gonna work. All right. Says I'm sharing the screen, but the screen's not coming up. All right, no
Okay,
problem.
so you
I'll
want
just
to
continue.
just run through things verbally. If we have
Sure.
to pick it up next week, we will.
Nah, it's okay. You'll understand it. It's easier sometimes when you see it. So 24-hour patrol, 24-hour patrol came back, started April 16th. The deputy sheriff's department is assisting with that at this moment. They assisted with one deputy per shift, around the clock, and that's going to happen until June 30th. Once June 30th comes, they don't have the money in next year's budget to continue to assist our department with that.
Bill, can I interrupt you for a
Sure.
second? We're getting word that the people at home were able to see your screen.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Thank you.
Sorry.
So hopefully they can still see my screen. You might not be able to see it, but people at home can see it. The issues with the 24-hour patrol, there's always, pros and cons with everything. And the issues with the 24-hour patrol is we reduced our detective bureau to one general detective and one task force detective. The task force detective is not located in Greenfield. It's a regional resource for the two counties, Hampshire and Franklin. So we really don't count him in our count because he's not in Greenfield all the time, most of the time. Sometimes that team comes to Greenfield and does work. You just saw a rather large cocaine bust that they all pled guilty. That was the task force that did that. So right now we are really down to one general detective. So that is an issue. Our reduced, our supervisors are reduced from 2 lieutenants to 1 lieutenant, and from 6 sergeants to 5 sergeants. So our supervision has been reduced in order to make that happen. We're having difficulty honoring accrued time off because, again, getting to this gets us by the skin of our teeth. And when somebody asks for a day off, we have to force somebody. If there's nobody to force, then we don't have anybody, and then we can't give the day off. That is only a reoccurring problem because eventually they're going to have that day off because they're not going to lose their time. And that's not fair to have them lose their time. And we're also having trouble with mandated training to send people to that training. Typically, we're going to have to pay people in order to go to that training because we can't go any lower than the 4 people that we have. We have 2 known medical leaves in May. That's going to be, when we came up with the 24-hour plan, we did not know about those 2 medical leaves. So surprise, we're down 2 more people, and which causes more overtime, which causes more forces. And it's just a cascading problem. There's high overtime costs, and supervision issues make it not sustainable as it is. We said that we could do this until June 30th. Once June 30th comes in, if our budget is passed in full, we're going to be able to replace the 2 people that we have, and we're going to be able to put those detectives back in and have some people. Once the 2 people come out of the academy, then we'll be 4 above what we are right now, and we can give the time off and whatnot. If our budget gets cut and we can't afford to keep those officers, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board, and you may see something like the midnight shifts not being covered again. Updates on the new hires. Officer Placenta is working on his own. You met these 4 people last month. He's working on his own. Right now he's assigned to the midnight shift, and he's loving it, and our officers like having him there. Officer Johnson, he started his FTO program the 1st of the month. He was firearms and taser certified. He's now working shifts with his training officers, and he was working today on day shift, so I got to see him. It was nice to be able to see him. Recruits Ippolito and Marino started the academy on April 3rd. Their proposed finish date for the academy is September 1st. After September 1st, expect 3 months of FTO because they have no experience in the field whatsoever, so they have to start from basic 1. So that is the update with the manpower. Sure.
When will Officer Johnson be out on his own? What's the timeline for that?
That can be anywhere from 1 to 3 months, depending on how he's doing. He has come to us with some experience, but not any experience on the road. He's just had an experience of training from another department. We have to actually untrain that stuff, retrain him to the Greenfield, the ways we do in Greenfield. But because he has some police training and the police academy, we don't expect it to be 3 months, but 1.5 months to 2 months.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
Deputy, I just, on the staffing, do you think it's fair to say that based upon a standard staffing analysis of a city comparable to ours, you'd be at around 42 FTEs if you were to do that comparison?
That's on the nose. So the matter of fact, and we plan on making that presentation tomorrow at the Ways and Means meeting about exactly why we should have the people that we have.
Yeah.
But yes, it's anywhere from 36 to the lowest amount of officers to 42, which is recommended by the Department of Justice. Matter of fact, if you go to defund.
So we think that we know better than the DOJ in this community. Is that a moral issue?
That's definitely a moral issue.
Okay. I just want to get that on the record. Okay, 42. Proper staffing. So the kind of things that you have to do is you have to cover vacations.
Correct.
Police officers, I think, have the right to get sick. Personal time. And then you said you have 2 leaves. Right. So those are all lawful, appropriate things.
Correct.
Right. Training time. You and I had a brief discussion about training and how important that is.
It's mandated.
And that's mandated.
Unfunded mandate.
Unfunded. Okay. So if we're going to advance the goals of public safety in the community, then we need to do all that.
Correct.
So I don't see an appetite for working sessions from the city government and the Public Safety Commission, but I want to assure you that I'm going to make it clear that I want that to happen, because these are the kinds of things that have to be out on the table so that people can understand them. Because when we start to have a budget session without the Public Safety Commission, that's insulting to me. And I'm not going to abide that, because I think that together we're stronger. And educating people about the issues is part of what we could do in a transparent way if we did working sessions with this commission. And I really think that you have the history. So when we were all selectmen, when I was a selectman, we were also commissioners. So our role was really a dual role. There seems to be an appetite for kind of, and I'm not trying to speak for my fellow commissioners, seems to be an appetite for putting the Public Safety Commission off to the side. My personal view is that we can be very instrumental in not only assisting in our functions, but also in educating so that the community feels supported. Is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement.
Okay, thanks.
Feel like I'm on the jury box. So.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's what happens to you in law school.
Yeah, that's right. So when you were a selectman, we had 29 police officers and detectives, 5 sergeants, 2 lieutenants, a deputy chief, and a chief. Right now, we have about 7 less than that. So over the years, we've reduced our department. You know, we have not grown. We've reduced quite a bit. Matter of fact, interesting enough, we're going to bring it up tomorrow. But if you go on defundthepolice.com and you put up Greenfield, defundthepolice.com says Greenfield should only have 42 officers, 36 to 42 officers. So we would be comfortable with 34 officers. Right now, we're running with 32 with 2 in the academy. So we're running with 30. So even defunding the police says we should have up to 42 officers. We're desperately behind. Yeah, we're at about 1.8 officers per 1,000 people, and they want the Massachusetts average is 2.49 officers. Right. So we're way below.
Okay.
And we've been operating that, and I'm not looking to take anybody from any other department. I'm not looking to. If you have more officers, you have to have less teachers. I'm not looking for that. And I wish they wouldn't do that to us as well. We're not trying to pit a department against a department. You know, we are 34 is where we operate are at a minimum, and we've been at a minimum for a long time. And any less than 34, and you're going to have there's effects. There's effects at 34, but
okay. Thank you for that.
No problem. Cruisers. So the city council did not support the capital request to replace 4 cruisers. Now, I typed this slide out before the people at the audience may see the slide. I typed this out before I understand that there was a reconsideration for one of our cruisers. But what we need is we need 4 cruisers, 4 marked cars. The last time we bought a marked car was in 2020. So that with this fiscal year, that is nearly 4 years ago. And those are our newest cars. Our oldest cars are 6 or 7 years old, and I'll get to that. So there was a little bit of misunderstanding about one of the cars, which is the shape of a pickup truck. And I don't want people to think that I'm looking for F-250, F-350. We're looking for what's called an F-150 police responder. The F-150 police responder debuted in 2021. It's a brand new thing. And basically it is a police car in the shape of a pickup truck body. But it is a police car. It has a cage in it, has a computer in it, has the radar in it. It just, instead of having a SUV type body, it has a pickup truck body. It's a dual purpose vehicle. So we actually get more out of it than just a regular car. And there's all kinds of things that we use a truck for. We live in New England. Most people understand when you live in New England, you kind of need a truck to haul equipment around and whatnot. But, you know, we constantly pick up bicycles, and bicycles do not fit in a utility. We pick up other large items. Sometimes we have a search warrant that has, you know, car full of, we just need to have something that is able to pick up and utilize in a pickup truck type forum. We've never asked for a pickup truck because in the past, the pickup truck was always above and beyond what our minimum is, right? So we were always like, no, we don't need a pickup truck. We'll work with the fire department. We'll share a fire department and everything like that. However, since 2021, because they changed this type of pickup truck to make it a police responder package, it is now just another police car in the shape of a pickup truck body. So there's no conspiracy. There's no conspiracy to try not to share items like, we've been told that where we don't want to share. It has nothing to do with that. It's just a car in the shape of a pickup truck body, and we'll be utilizing it like any other marked car. So I just wanted to put that out because there's a lot of misconceptions in the public of exactly what this pickup truck was. Matter of fact, one of the counselors brought up that, well, why do they need all that fancy equipment if they just need a pickup truck? We'll just buy them a basic pickup truck. Because we're not looking for a basic pickup truck. We're looking for a cruiser and a pickup truck body. So it works a dual purpose. We get more bang for our buck with that. And we pull trailers often, and we haul gasoline. Gasoline should not be put into the back of a utility, correct? Talking to the fire department right here. Gasoline should not be put in the back of a SUV. It needs to go in pickup trucks. So we have a need for a pickup truck, and this one just happens to be a dual purpose. End of rant on that. The fleet. So right now we have 12 marked cruisers, 10 are for patrol use. One of those is completely dead and out of use whatsoever. So we're down to 9 regular police cars. 9 regular police cars in an ice storm or a large fire, when you're trying to block off cruisers, get eaten up really fast. Often one or two of them are used for police details that happen to be on the highway and they need police lights. So we don't always have 9 cars sitting in our parking lot. They're often used. 2 of them are assigned to canines. So a dog car cannot be used to haul prisoners. A dog car helps transport a dog back and forth from the officer's house safely. We have 11 unmarked cars. 4 are designed for the detective bureau. Now, right now, we only have 1 detective. So right now, one could say that we have extra police cars. But in the regular sense, we actually need those cars and then 1 spare in case one goes. It's not 1 spare in case one goes down. You keep 1 spare so they're not always used 24 hours a day. We have 5 unmarked cars that are assigned. 1 is assigned to the chief and 1 is assigned to me. And we utilize those all the time, whether we're not necessarily ever off duty because like Chief Strahan, we work 24 hours a day. If you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning, we respond. So we're always working, and it has our equipment in there, including our radios, which if a large situation happens, you want the chiefs to be able to respond directly to the scene. 1 is assigned to the patrol lieutenant, which we don't have right now, but we're hoping to have. 1 is assigned to the administrative lieutenant, which we do have. 1 is assigned to the DB supervisor because they get called out and they have to go out 24 hours a day on those types of calls too. The administrative lieutenant is also part of the SRT team and part of the detective bureau as well, leadership. 1 car is used for training and transports, and 1 car is used for the attorney to get back and forth to court. The attorney, he gets the rattiest car that just barely passes inspection, has that broken wheel like the shopping cart, and he just goes back and forth to court. But if he took a regular car, that would be 1 less car for another person. So matter of fact, his car was just changed over, and he was on a 2008 car. So his car was about 15 years old when we finally said it's not safe. You could see through the floorboards. The specialty vehicle, we have a parking enforcement car. It's not really for the police department. It's for parking enforcement, but it's on our list because we help maintain it. We help take care of it. We have an animal control officer car. Again, it's on our list. Doesn't do anything for the police department. Every once in a while, we do pick up bicycles with it because we can't put them in our utility vehicles. We have a command post that we just got approved. We have a golf cart that's about 30 years old and doesn't start, and it's kind of halfway dangerous because it lurches when it eventually starts. We have an ATV that was donated to the department by an anonymous donor, which we really appreciate, and we utilize that for special events or if there's an emergency happening in the county. And we have the 2 message boards that the commissioners just approved, which apparently people love. People love those message boards. So the replacement for the vehicles, So this year, the replacement for the vehicles, which was denied by the council, was car 2, which is a marked car. That's a 2017. So what are we? That's a 7-year-old car, 83,000 miles. And don't forget, we won't be able to buy the car right away. It takes 6 months to a year to get a car once you order it. So that car is going to be about 8 years old. That car will not probably make that whole life for the whole year. Car 3, which is already dead, is a 2016, has 88,000 miles, and it won't pass inspection. It's a dead vehicle. It is in our lot. So if somebody drives through the lot, they'll see it there, but it's deadline. Car 6, which is marked, and again, a 2017, 74,000 miles on it. Car 10, which is a 2017, has 86,000 miles on it. Those 4 cars were destined to be replaced this year. The money's not there. It's not in our budget. Our budget lease has a big goose egg in it. We will not be able to replace cars this year. We'll have to lay off officers, and we don't have the appetite to lay off officers to buy cars. Next year, car 13, which is K9 vehicle, which will be over 10 years, and right now has 80,000 miles, just under 80,000 miles on it. Car 18, which is a 2014, so that again is over 10 years old. Car 19 is over 10 years old, and car 20 is over 10 years old. All need to be replaced next year. Next year, we will be asking for, instead of 4 cars, we'll be asking for 8 cars, which just contributes to the financial cliff that we're hearing about. If we put that into our budget next year, you're talking about $200,000 that the school is going to be needing as well, and the fire department is going to be needing as well. So this is why we have a replacement plan, so we don't come into those fiscal cliffs. But we will have that fiscal cliff next year when we're trying to replace 8 cars. 2006, fiscal year 26, we're looking to replace 3 2020 cars, which are 2 of them are marked. And I'm sorry, I got that wrong. 2 marked 2020 cars, a park and enforcement car, which will be 15 years old, and a DB car that will be over 10 years old. Fiscal year 27, we'll be looking at 4 marked cars, all of them which are 2020, so those will be 7 years old. So we're not taking cars and replacing the suggested replacement for cars at 3 years. I think it's kind of ridiculous. I think cars with 3 years have a lot of life. We try to extend our cars to 5 years. These are the marked cars. But marked cars, which are utilized all the time and hit really heavy and do a lot of work, they get really ratty at 5 years. We're extending them to 7 years, and we still have this replacement schedule. 2028, you have a 2017, 2 2017s and a 2018 vehicle. So again, all those cars are over 10 years old at that time. And then FY29 should have been the rotation for the cars that we bought this year, so every 5-year rotation. The message board, message board 1, the fiscal year 31, message board 2, fiscal year 33, the ACO vehicle, fiscal year 33, and the ATV, which would be hoping that we'd find a donation by then, but it's fiscal year 35. So that's our entire replacement schedule. That's all been given to the council, so they're aware of that. But like I said, you know, I'm not looking to pick a fight. I'm just stating this is the facts that these cars are needed, you know, and if we don't have cruisers, we can't respond. That's like the meat and potatoes of police work. We're going to be walking, which I'm sure some people wouldn't mind us walking. So one of the things that was brought up in a recent meeting is higher education with law enforcement. I just wanted to touch on that. Sure.
Do we know what the cost, do we know what the spend is to maintain and fix cars annually?
Right now, we only have $15,000 in our budget line for fixing cars.
Okay.
And so some of these cars aren't even worth, they're 7-year-old police cars. They're worth $400. And you need a new transmission and it's $2,000. We're just not going to do that. The car will be deadline. That's what's wrong with car 3. So.
Okay, I understand. And outside the cost of buying the car, do you know what the cost to outfit the car is to make it a cruiser?
Yes. Matter of fact, I thought I had that with me.
Exactly.
To outfit a car, the inside, the lights and the radars and everything is about $15,000.
$15,000.
Yeah. Don't quote me on the dime on that, but yeah, it's about $45,000 for the car and about $15,000. Each one of them has some change. It comes up to like $62,000, $63,000 for the total.
All right, thank you. You can.
That's why they say they suggest replacing them at 3 years, because the equipment that you put in a car will last then 2 years. So that $15,000 investment you put in the car will last 2 cars rather than 1 car. But when you put them in 1 car and that stuff is 7 years old, it's not worth putting it on a brand new car. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up was higher education. I'm just going to touch on this, is that there was some suggestions that the Greenfield Police Department police departments make a requirement, and I know that you brought this up, and it's not a front to you, makes a requirement to have higher education on hiring during the hiring cycle. I'm opposed to that, and the reason why, one, as I came in without having a degree, I now have a master's degree. And if we limited our pool to degrees, we would definitely limit the diversity, the ability to have a diverse police department by people that only had the wealth in order to go get a degree. So I'm opposed to that. What I'm pro on is exactly what we do, which is have a lucrative incentive system for officers that have been hired to go get their degrees. And that's where I started. I started with my high school diploma. I came in here with some college credits. I got hired. I saw the incentive, and I'm like, well, I want that incentive. It made me go get my associate's degree. So I went and got my associate's degree. And then the next incentive, I'm like, I would like to have that too. So I went and got my bachelor's degree. My wife did the exact same thing. She got her associate's degree and she got her bachelor's degree. And then I said, you know what? Someday I want to be promoted. I'll go get my master's degree. So it's a really good program right now. So we have an educational incentive for criminal justice, sociology, which we're only one of few departments have incentive for sociology, psychology, business management. And our degrees can't just be on University of Phoenix. No, slap to them, but they have to be Quinn Bill approved, which is any New England Association accredited colleges, college accreditation system, NEACS accredited. And what they do for our incentive is we get a 10% associate's degree, a 20% bachelor's degree, and a 25% master's degree. And this was based after what's called the Quinn Bill. And back in when I first started, the state would pay for half of that education. So that education, the state kept the Quinn Bill, kept the towns on the dime for the Quinn Bill, but then backed out of what they said that they were going to pay. So now the towns are up for the 100% of that. But at the time, the towns were only paying half of that. But now that, like I said, the towns pay for that whole thing, but it does incentivize our officers to get those degrees. As a matter of fact, 25 of our 30 officers have degrees in higher education and qualify for that incentive. Myself and Sergeant Haskins has a master's degree. Chief Haig, Lieutenant Dodge, Sergeant Clark, Sergeant Green, Sergeant Cloutier, Officer Belleville, Detective Green, Officer Griffin, Officer Henry, Officer Legoy, Officer Lemos, Officer Merrigan, Officer Siniger, all have bachelor's degrees. Our associate's degrees are Officer Cooley, Officer Granger, Officer Johansson, Officer Kratz, Officer Pollen, Officer Placenta, Detective Purrington, Officer Rowell, Officer West. I do believe that our incentive program meets the bill of trying to get higher educated officers. Some of our other officers have degrees, but they're not accredited, they're not certified to get the incentive. So and most of the other officers are working towards their degrees. They're just brand new. So I want to bring that up. And the last thing, if any questions on that?
I don't. Okay.
So it allows us to get diverse candidates, open up our pool to more candidates while still being able to go for the higher education degree. So the last thing I was asked to talk about is Massachusetts Police Accreditation Commission, the accreditation process. So I'm going to just really go through that kind of quick.
So can I don't need to be pushy.
Yep.
I want to make sure we have enough time for the fire updates and our updates. And I ask you to just brief it.
Right.
We're not going to get through all that tonight. If you could just give us a quick introduction to that, and we're gonna hit this several times. So I just want to make sure we have enough time for.
So accreditation is 382 standards, that 257 which are mandatory, 125 are optional, and Greenfield has to meet 69 of those optional standards. The accreditation basically tells a department what they need to cover, not how they need to cover, but does make the department prove that they're doing what they're doing. So anything in our policies that you read, we actually have to prove to an independent party that we do what we say we do. The areas that are covered are agency, authority, jurisdiction, use of force, recruitment, selection, promotional personnel, training, discipline, internal affairs, patrol, traffic operations, criminal investigations, victim witness assistance, emergency response planning, prisoner transportation and holding facilities, records and communication, collection and preservations of evidence, and property and evidence control. We have to do inspections of our property room. We have to do audits of our property room. All that wasn't done 10 years ago. That what we do, what should have been done, but I mean, probably was in the policy that we said we'd do. But now we have to actually do that and show an independent party that we do stuff like that.
So can you ask, again, I want to get clear of maybe a lot of the details. What's the point behind being accredited?
The accreditation is, hold on, I have a slide on that. It keeps, it keeps me.
Details in the future, but I just want to make sure we have enough time. But I'm very curious. I wanted you to talk about what is
the benefits
behind being accredited.
So the benefits. So the benefits. The main benefit is the culture change. It's intangible. We can't point to it and say this is what it is, but it changes a department from being haphazard to a ultra professional police department that has policy and procedures about everything. We have hundreds of policy and procedures. A lot of that is because of accreditation mandates it. We have to have training on everything that we do. Even attaching the trailer to a cruiser and pulling the message board trailer to a location, I actually have to provide training to the select officers that are allowed to do that because of accreditation. Accreditation involves policy writing. The department becomes more proficient in policy writing. And we're actually, Greenfield is asked by the entire state for copies of our policies. And we distribute them to departments across the state because of our up-to-date policies on what we have to do. They have minor facility improvements. Some of that was already done in the evidence room. Some of it is done with what we're talking about right now, which was the communications, the security for the generator security. The water infiltration would be no, but the mold would be yes. And certain types of equipment purchases, like we have to have the door locks in our cruisers to be not activated. We have to have the cages on the back windows. You have to have lights that work on your cruisers, sirens, all that stuff. So it dictates the type of stuff that you have. It provides a norm for the agency to judge its performance. So that when we do a lot of that, and you see that, I've given you bias-free reporting. I've given you use of force reporting that we do at the end of the year, every year. And every year for the last 5 years, we're able to base our performance on other reports that we've done in the past. So we can see improving reports. Accreditation makes us do that. We commit our policy and procedures to writing. So sometimes we say something like, yeah, we're going to do cell checks every 30 minutes. We have to have that in our policy that, a person that is suicidal has to be physically checked 100% of the time. If they reach this criteria, it has to be checked every 15 minutes. If it reaches this criteria, it has to be 30 minutes. All of that has to be documented and then proven. We have to have the key card swipes to be able to prove that we do those. It provides a mean of independent evaluation of agency operations for quality assurance. So outside agencies, outside chiefs of police, accreditation managers will come in, and these are the top people in the state. They come in to make sure that we're doing what we're doing. And it enhances the reputation and promotes public confidence in the agency. Although in the last year, we've kind of questioned that one ourselves, because even though we've changed and we've become more professional, people are questioning us more than ever. And we're open to the questions, but I'm thinking that the public confidence has not reached what we want it to be. Greenfield is the only participating Franklin County city or town.
That is accredited.
That's accredited or certified. We're the only agency in the entire, there's only a handful in Western Mass. Most of Eastern Mass from Worcester over is 100%, almost 100% in the system, and only a small handful in Western Mass, and we are one of the highest ranking, which is accredited.
Okay, so would you mind if we digest what you've told us so far?
I sent it all to you.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I sent you all whatever it was, 300 standards, so you can digest that. This is like 100 pages or whatever, and you can actually see on that what we're rated on and what we do.
Yeah, I think it's important to give I don't want to speak for all the commissioners. I think it's important to give us time to digest that and to be able to come back and ask specific questions on that. It seems like a great program and I'm interested to learn more about it. I'm sure the other commissioners are too.
And since I dominated most of the time, if you ask for information, I give you
I
information.
understand. I just thinking about being fair and timely, that's all. So thank you, Deputy Chief Gordon. Any questions for the deputy at this point, commissioners? You can make as many points as you want.
Okay, and I understand the time sensitive, but I just, on the cruisers, so there should be an expectation on the city side, both council and executive, that you build in, I would say, a minimum of 2 to 4 replacement vehicles every year.
Correct.
Right. And you get, so we're getting criticized for that.
Correct.
Okay. So that's a baseline tool of the trade.
If you want us to get to your place,
Yeah.
it used to be by horse.
So that's a waste of time to debate that.
It
Okay.
takes a lot of energy.
I just want to share with you, and I'm sorry for taking the time, but I think I have a little bit of experience managing an agency, procurement, staff training and development, accreditation. I want to share with you, I had a graduate student about 25 years ago come to me and do a study in the SIN. And at first I didn't approve it, and then I did. How much money would the city save if every police officer had a take-home car, right?
Yeah.
The state police do.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's going where the devil doesn't want to go, right? You can't talk about that. So he did an excellent, I'm sorry I don't have a copy of it, we did a study. And because when a car is used 24/7, it wears out more quickly. And there is evidence to support the fact that when an officer takes a car home, it has time to rest, lasts longer, and somehow miraculously it's better maintained.
Yes.
Right? You don't have to bring the spray bottle like I used to back in Worcester County and spray the mess off the seat when you draw the car out of the transportation pool.
And it's more accountable to the officers too.
Right.
If equipment is broken,
Well, I think
you know who
that's-
did it.
And I think we're looking for accountable officers.
Yes.
Right? I know I didn't miss that, right? Okay. So we, as a government, should be supporting that instead of talking about it. That's baseline. I love what you said about education, and I only want to say, you know, I ran a Quinville program, wonderful program. Greenfield officers are lucky because you have that contractually, you've got it.
Right.
My concern is going forward, police reform says it's reform in the title. If they want critical thinkers, we need higher pay and we need educated officers. So I agree with the part of you that says, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go out and get the degree.
Yep.
Okay. And I'm happy to hear that that's something that we do. And just on accreditation, I just want to say it, folks. You know, my experience with this obviously has been jails, but accreditation is accreditation. Accreditation is time consuming, it's staff intensive, and it provides a baseline foundational best practices model for a public agency. And you know what? I chair the school board. If the school committee came, you know, and somebody came and said, we need money for accreditation, I would never have hesitated. So we should never hesitate when we're talking about funding those kinds of items. And I will speak loudly on behalf of the agency for that, because that's important.
And that's where the supervisors come in play, and we're low on supervisors. It's very difficult for us to maintain the accreditation. And if we continue to stay low on supervisors, we're going to lose the accreditation. There's no way we can maintain it.
I agree. Okay, that's all. I'm sorry to take up time.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're all set, Deputy?
Yep.
Okay, next up, the gentleman next to you. Fire Department update, please. Thank you, young man.
Thank you.
So I'm going to keep this relatively brief tonight. It was a hard act to follow. We went over a lot of the significant calls last month meeting that we had in March, the car accident and some of the storm that we have. So I'm not going to go over that. I just want to highlight a couple things. First of all, my privilege to go down and represent the fire department at Forrester Menson's graduation, part of class S31 out of the academy. He did a great job. He's a welcome asset to the department. He's in full rotation and is doing great. We went over the snowstorm the last time, so I won't go over that. I do want to put your attention to the payroll. Specifically our overtime for the month of March. If you look, it was at 66 hours, which some of the initiatives and changes we've made have dramatically reduced the amount of overtime, at least for that month. We're going to be hitting it hard, probably starting May 15th, which is the beginning of our vacation season, which alters how many people can be off at a time. But with the addition of the 2 firefighters, that brought 2 of the shifts back to 7. One shift, unfortunately, has a gentleman out on long-term leave, but we've been able to hold down the overtime a little bit. So we are at $14,000 over in our overtime account, with another, probably with vacation season, probably another 50,000 on top of that, which initially I was looking at the projections back in October, November was going to put us about 170,000 over. So we've done a lot to try to make that happen. With that said, the overtime is what the overtime is, and we reflected our next year's budget on that, which shows an increase. Our city council, I think, has a very tough road ahead of them when it comes to budget, especially with other departments asking some big asks. And I will tell you that I am probably involved with the last 18 to 20 years worth of budgets. And when this happens, the big 3 get looked at very closely at the city council floor. And we're a little nervous about that. This coming up, because we are still not recovered from the 2008 recession, if you will. We are still down staffing. We were hoping to restore staffing this year. Unfortunately, the mayor had to make some difficult decisions, and part of that was additional staffing that we had put in for to bring our shifts back to 7. It's an impossible situation sometimes with budget to try to get to where we need to be. We get creative, but at the end of the day, there's a pie of money in the city, and it only goes around so much. So we have Ways and Means tomorrow, and we will do our best job to sell our budget. Our fire department budget is up about 10%. It has been cut about 4 to 5%. The ask was 16% increase in our budget to strictly get our staffing back to where we need to be. It did not include the adding back the deputy chief, which we have been without since Deputy Jarvis retired, which is, any agency will tell you, not having a number 2 within the department is incredibly challenging. But my goal and my intention is to make sure that we get our shifts back to the minimum staffing shifts of 7 on a shift. We will be under this budget adding 1 position, and the way that that's being done is what we have on staff right now has all been shifted to the operating budget, freeing up a position, an entry-level position out of the ambulance revenue account. So as long as the budget gets through, we'll have 3 groups of 7 and 1 group of 6. But when we hire that additional firefighter, it's 6 months, just like the police, to get them up to speed in rotation and qualified on a shift. And so our overtime that I have in the budget for next year is not enough to cover what the projected overtime is going to be for the year. So I'm hoping that it stays through the budget process without being cut. So again, I don't envy their city council. They have a tough road ahead of them, but as the superintendent said the other day, my job is to advocate for the fire department. And so that's what I will be doing as much as I can. So that's next year's budget. And I'll take any questions.
Any questions, commissioners?
One, Chief, how did you fare on your capital?
Great question. So we put in for 3 items through capital. This is another item with our budget for coming up that I'll talk about in a second. So 3 items that we put in was an ambulance, brand new ambulance to be borrowed for with the thought process that the ambulance is going to be 1 to 2 year build. So you're not going to see it this fiscal year. You might not even see it next fiscal year. That was approved. That went through capital with an approved, it went to the mayor, approved it, and city council graciously approved it. And we're very grateful for city council doing that. So we'll be looking at the new ambulance in a couple of years. 2 other items that were on capital. One was to replace our Kubota, which is about 20 years old. It's a UTV that would have a pump and a capacity to haul sick or injured people out of the woods. It's a very critical piece of equipment for us. That was denied by capital improvement because there was only so much capital money to go around. So that wasn't approved. And the other one was rescue equipment, which is just Deputy, you will remember that I've had to do that every 5 years or so because we fall behind on replacing loose equipment, especially our rescue equipment needs to be updated. So we put that in. That did not get approved through the capital improvement. It did not go through the mayor. Therefore, the city council did not budget that. So our line item within our budget for firefighting equipment is going to have to be altered a little bit this year to try to fit in some of the loose equipment that we're talking about. And when I talk about loose rescue equipment, I'm talking about ropes, where, you put a firefighter on over a cliff on a rope. You need to have rope that is, up to snuff, certified and ready to go, because the rope is the only thing holding that firefighter over a cliff. So we're going to have to make some adjustments within our operating budget. I'm hoping that we do a good job tomorrow night in presenting our budget. And again, we're hoping that we'll get through city council, the final process with some limited reductions. So I'll take any questions that anybody has.
So is there a position in the budget for a new deputy chief, and has there been?
That's a great question. So again, my goal for the last, Commissioner, when did you leave? 7 years ago? My goal for the last 7 years was to get our shift strength back up to 100%.
And the shift strength up to 100% is 7?
3718.
Sorry, say that again.
3718. And the 18 is for the IOD, the floater, if you will. We always have somebody out on some type of leave.
Sure.
I've explained that where we have injured on duties, our job, unfortunately, is a dangerous job. And so it's routinely that firefighters are out with injuries. So that's the goal, to try to get us back to the full strength. Then I was going to add the deputy chief back because we need the bodies that are going on the calls. And as much as I need the administrative help, we do have a strong administrative team with our captains that we have, but the upper end administration is handled by one person. That is all discipline, that is all complaints, that is, and it's a tall task. But the priority is to get our shifts back to where it's taken 7 years. And we're hoping that if the budget goes through this year, we're almost there. And then we'll start worrying about the deputy chief.
Who's doing the work of the deputy chief?
My administrative staff, which is myself, my fire prevention officer has to step up and he's code and enforcement, but our deputy chief assisted a lot with plans reviews, which is a huge part of that job. they do that. And then I have two administrative captains, one in charge of logistics and one in charge of planning.
Thank you.
Eventually, one of those positions would probably be a deputy chief. We would like to add a deputy chief, but someday that one of those may be upgraded. You know, it all depends on how the budget seasons that are ahead of us go. I've had to redo our staffing plan. I've been chief for 10 years. I probably redid it 8 times. So.
Thank you for the answers. Any other questions?
I really question my chief. I won't be on the spot. It's good to know that it takes that many people to do what I had to do. Didn't know that's so valuable. But no, I just like to point out that getting up to 7 men or 7 personnel, I should say 7 people on staff is what was agreed to some 25 years ago when we had a feasibility study. And I would just, I'd like to remind the public of that was 25 years ago, and that was a compromise from a feasibility study that gave the numbers 9 and 11. 11 people working, 9 people minimum. So we haven't even reached that goal some 25 plus years later. So just a little reminder about that. And it seems like every budget year for over 30 years that I've been involved with the fire department, it's always like it could be a Memorex tape of over time. And the same thing with the PD. It's all a Memorex tape. It's never fully funded. And it's always a juggling match, and it's always hold your breath to the end of the year, hoping that you don't have to give anybody their slips with 7 weeks notice saying they're going to be laid off, or 8 weeks notice. They forgot what legally we have to do now. So it is a challenge. I don't envy you. I don't envy the deputy, or I don't envy any of you. I remember being there with you when we were pulling our hair out. Equipment definitely needs to be replaced. I wish city council, I wish the capital, not city council, capital forwarded with a positive recommendation to fund that. I remember doing fundraisers, going out soliciting businesses in the city of Greenfield to buy us new Hearst tools, which sounds pretty bad that we had to ask for handouts to do that. And radios for every firefighter. So I hope we don't end up in that boat again. It seems like hopefully you get the funding that you're asked for in your budget, so we don't have any layoffs. Because it definitely puts not only the firefighters at risk, but it puts the civilians at risk too. The people that we're trying to protect, the visitors to the city of Greenfield, the people that are residents of the city of Greenfield. They're all put at risk if we don't have the proper staff and proper people responding on our trucks to help. Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to go on record unequivocally and say that our city council has been very supportive of our fire department for the last many years, and by no means was my comments made in any derogatory way towards our members of our city council. I'm just going off of my years of experience when we are looking for funding for other departments, where that funding historically has come from. And, it's not a reflection of our current city council. They've been very supportive of the fire department. I'm very humbled by their support.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions for the chief?
Just a comment. Sarah, neither was I. I wasn't trying to put, city council has funded us. I'm just trying to point out to give a little bit of history to where we should be and where we are. That was all my background. That was just trying to give a little history about where we are today, where we should have been 25 years ago, and further along today.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
The one item I did not talk about is the progression of the fire department or the fire station. If you drive by it every day, something new's happening there, right? The roof's on, and then now there's walls up, and within a couple of weeks, you're going to see some concrete floors. put in, and project's moving right along. I'm so thrilled with the progress of it. The construction, the actual construction is still on target for December-ish finish, the end of December, early January. There may be some supply issues that are maybe coming down the pike that could affect the project, but right now the construction part of it is they're cranking away.
Looks great. Yeah, if you could only get rid of that ugly greenhouse, we greatly appreciate that. Just. Any other comments or updates for you, Chief? All right, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to commissioner questions, input, and topics. I have, as the chair, have a few things to say. The first thing I have to say is, last meeting, you were all very humble with respect to everything that was handled and done for these storms we've had, the severe accident we had on Route 2. And you had mentioned that a police officer had actually saved a life of a resident. And you didn't divulge that name. I will divulge that name because I am proud of it. I want to really thank Officer Jedediah Henry. This officer, he didn't question anything. He didn't question who the person was, where they came from, anything like that. He was the first responder. He was there. He saved this man's life before the fire department got there and the emergency got there. So my hat's off to this police officer, and his name is deservedly worth mention. And I will say thank you publicly for that.
Thank you.
This is what our fire department and police department and public safety EMS do every day. So thank you for that. Secondly, I'm going to look at my fellow commissioners here, and I'm going to make an announcement for myself personally. Tonight, I will be stepping down as the chair of the Public Safety Commission. I will be not be leaving the Public Safety Commission. I will be stepping down as the chair. A new commission was formed a few months ago. A new commission was formed a few months ago with 3 of us. And, you know, today we have, well, we will next month, we'll have 5 commissioners. At the council meeting, Amy McMahon was approved. So she has to go through the process. She'll be sworn in. She's online with us now, listening to the meeting. She can't participate, but we're looking forward to having 5 commissioners. The task will be to reorganize. I will look to the vice chair, Commissioner Illinois, since I will be stepping down after this meeting to move forward with the Public Safety Commission. And I wanted to make that announcement publicly to my other commissioners at this time. So with that, we can move on.
Just wanted to thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you. I'll still be a commissioner.
Right.
You'll still have to hear my voice. All right, moving on. We received, I asked both departments to supply their public complaints policies and procedures. We did receive those. They were updated. Thank you both for supplying that information to us. I had a couple of follow-up questions, and I will ask if the commissioners, any of the commissioners had any other follow-up questions with respect to the 2 policies and procedures.
Yeah, I do. Just one clarification, maybe on something. So at what point do the commissioners get informed about a complaint? I didn't see them outlined in any of the reports, any of the procedures and policies. And I guess I don't know, but at what point do we get notified? I mean, that there has been a complaint issued. Obviously, probably at the very beginning of the exploratory decision, but when do we get notified? Just my question for both of you.
Yeah, historically, my understanding is that when the way that you would receive a complaint is either direct through the commission, or if a complaint went to the mayor's office and would be forwarded to the commission. The complaints that we talk about within our policy is specifically about once we get the complaint. So whether we get the complaint directly to us or whether the complaint comes from the commission for us to look at, that's where our policy kicks in. There's no avenue within our policy that says that once we get a complaint, we're to notify the Public Safety Commission. It works the opposite in that. And that's what historically has been there.
Any other comments from the deputy or the chief?
That would be the same with us, except that we have requirements to report to post within 2 days.
So would you like to speak, Commissioner Lloyd?
Sure, so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that going forward, the things that I get concerned about are making sure that if something goes somewhere else, if it's supposed to be forwarded, that we get it. And then my concern would also be for protection of confidentiality with respect to the whole personnel issue that relates to that. I'm not up to speed on where does HR provide training on the city side to the departments? Do you get it on your own with respect to those issues? Because the policy has to reflect the appropriate guidelines relative to personnel matters, right? And you guys know what I'm talking about. So if the commission is going to entertain, have forwarded to it, be able to see, some sort of a complaint, which is fine within the orbit of public trust. I want to suggest that maybe, again, and I'm going to bring it up again, a working session, so that if it's HR, if it's someone from one of your departments who wants to walk through with us what the issues are relative to that kind of a thing, because it's the details that mess you up. And I want to be on the right side of those things. So, and post is unraveling, so we don't know what the capacity is that post allegedly will have.
Well, I can tell you that any investigator of the Greenfield Police Department for internal affair complaints is mandated to go through the MPTC training on internal affairs, which is governed by post. So all of our investigators are trained by an outside agency.
So maybe this commission would benefit from a presentation by that person. You think?
Yeah, absolutely. But
Okay.
then I talk too long.
Why?
Then I talk too long.
You're not talking. There's too much to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can talk about internal affairs policy to death if you want.
Yeah, but I think that's something we want to do going forward.
Sure.
Okay.
So I had a few questions. There seems like there's 15 ways to Sunday to issue a complaint, which is great. Phone call, piece of paper, anonymous. So my concern, this is really not a question, but I think my concern is making sure all those complaints get gathered and, they aren't missed and they're documented. And I know both of you had mentioned having logbooks for all complaints. Are all complaints logged in a book and tracked, even if you consider it a minor complaint?
Correct.
We just put this policy into
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
We have a policy program that we pay a lot of money for, they have blanket policies that come out and we tweak them to our needs. This particular policy, all the policies that we go through are vetted through attorneys through the Commonwealth and their Massachusetts geared policies. And then we put them into effect. My point is that we just got this done and negotiated with the union. And so, yes, we have a logbook. I don't have anything in it right now, so.
Yeah.
So for our response, our policy's been in effect since before 2001, but this particular Massachusetts Chiefs policy was adopted in 2001. We have a logbook. We have complaints in the logbook. We have to transmit all those complaints to post. And so every police officer that's ever worked for the Greenfield has been, all internal affairs have been reported to post. So they have a running log of all of our complaints. And that same log has been transmitted to public forum in the next request.
I should also mention our current policy and the way that we do things. Any disciplinary actions that are taken by any member of the fire department we deal with HR closely and when appropriate, attorneys when needed. If we pose any discipline, such as suspensions or anything like that, the majority of our employees are still civil service employees. And not only do we have to notify human resources, we also have to send a letter to HRD explaining any discipline that's imposed on any firefighter within the department.
Okay. So if resident, and this is more for the police because you don't deal with posts, you're lucky. If a resident goes directly to post and bypasses the police department, how long does it take for you to be notified of that? Because that should be also tracked and you're involved in that, correct?
That hasn't happened yet. I'm not sure exactly how long post would tell us, or post may not actually tell us. They may just audit our records to see if we already have it in our records because we were supposed to already have notified. But if somebody goes directly to post without going to us, I'm sure there's a mechanism for post to tell us. It hasn't happened yet that I'm looking. So
can you, when notifying about complaints, can there be a general, can it be put on your yearly or your monthly so you could tell the commission, you know, in 2023, we had 15 complaints, not the details of the complaints. I know some of them are personnel issues, but I mean, how is the commission, you know, I think getting back to how do we track complaints? How can, are we gonna outright ask you, are you gonna supply us with the information monthly? Are you gonna categorize the type of complaints? I think that, you know, there's so many ways that a complaint can come in. I just, again, I don't want to see things fall through the cracks. And, you know, I know if there's something that is critical, we can go into executive session and we could talk about that. But, you know, just in general, are you planning to give an overall number, put a number to your complaints when you give us your monthly or yearly information?
I don't have an answer for that, for the simple reason that I would ask some legal counsel on that, especially if we're talking about complaints that may result in disciplinary action. Even if you did an executive board or an executive session, you still have to afford the employee a right to be there.
Yes.
And it's still public.
Yes.
And not that anybody's trying to hide anything, but you know, there's due process and there's investigations that need to happen and things like that. And fortunately, I don't have a lot of experience in that because we really haven't had it rise to that level within the
I'll
department.
take care of it. Got some experience.
But in order to answer that question, I'm not comfortable answering that because I just don't know.
Sure, you know, I'm throwing these questions out there so we can all hear them. Public can hear them, the commissioners can hear them. We're not going to have all the answers in one night.
I can give you an answer. Yes, we give to you the public record.
Okay.
I can't give you all the details of which is inside every single one outside of executive session, but we can give you a broad view.
Okay. Yeah, I would like that as a commissioner. I don't want to speak for the other commissioners, but I would think they would agree with me. But you can state what you have. I think it's a good idea. For me anyway, is you know, we have to look at ways of keeping track of these. We want to be sure that there's a reoccurring things that are happening, and if they are, maybe they can be addressed in a certain way. That's the whole point behind, I think, this, in making sure the public has the right, you know, to you know, say what they need and want to say, and you know, and it's not thrown between the cracks.
The public absolutely has a right to know disciplinary histories of police officers, and we're more than willing to be transparent. You tell us how you want that, and we'll make sure we give it to you.
Okay, I would refer to my vice chair and the other commissioners before I would make that decision, but it could be talk, or they might have comments on that right now. Leave that up in the air at this moment in time. Are there any other comments from any other commissioners or questions?
Well, I have a concern that the person making a complaint, any type of complaint, that be followed also. I've often wondered how that is carried out. That we make sure that that person hears back from someone. I've never been involved in any of that. I've been on for 10 years.
Luckily, I have, and we do, in most part, give a, we don't tell the person the exact type of discipline that's imposed, but we will say whether it's sustained, exonerated, unfounded. The disposition will be told if we know. Sometimes we don't know the person that made the complaint. There's, like he said, there's any way from Sunday to be able to make a complaint. If you put a complaint on a paper airplane and throw it at me and I get it, I'm going to look into it. You know, so, but I'm not going to be able to respond to that. But if you call and you give your name and you're interested in knowing what the outcome of that complaint is, well, by all means, make sure we keep in contact with you. And not only that, but we interview that person as well, as long as they're willing to be interviewed. Some people aren't willing to be interviewed. So we only do with the information of which we have, you know. So if we get an airplane, then I can't follow. How do I follow that stuff up? However, we will look into it because there may be ways that we can investigate that, right? But we're not going to be able to interview the person that made the complaint, you know. So it all depends. There's so many different factors that come into play on that type. But if we know the person and we know that person has a vested interest on knowing what happened with the complaint, we'll by all means tell them. Matter of fact, if we don't tell them, that only sets us up for more of a civil complaint anyways. And you know, people, one question came from a counselor. If somebody broke into my home, if a police officer broke into my home, who investigates that? Lawyers. Believe me, they would be more than happy to investigate that. If you can make a complaint to us, you can make a complaint to the Public Safety Commission, you can make a complaint to the mayor, you can make a complaint to Post, and you can make a complaint to an attorney, all of which is going to follow up with you. We have nothing to hide. It's all out there, and we can't hide it. If we hid it, you know, and we got caught hiding it, then it would be my job. You know, and when we said this till we're blue in the face, we've given our documents, but we've given, whether they're sustained, exonerated, and if they were sustained, what the punishments were. You know, a lot, fortunately for us, most of them are not sustained. Most of them are complaints that have been unfounded, that the officers really never did. And nowadays we have video cameras that actually are on every officer. And once we say that we'll check the video, often that's the end of the complaint right there. As soon as I say we'll check the video. So, we are, I'm not speaking for the fire department. We live in a very litigious world. We live in a world that many people are upset at our actions. Most of the time when we help somebody else is negatively affected. So we live in positive and negative effects. And the people that have negatively affected by the police departments are often not happy with their service. We don't always make the customer happy, but we always listen to their complaints. So if we make somebody unhappy, whether they were arrested, whether they hurt our officers or not, if they make a complaint, we look into it and we do an investigation, and it's all documented, and the results of the documentation are now sent to an independent agency.
Thank you. This
No problem.
conversation is meant to, I appreciate everything you said. I don't want you to feel on the defense. This is all good stuff.
No, I'm not on the
This is all
fence.
good stuff that we're talking about, that the public needs to hear, that the commissioners need to hear. I do have a question.
I just want to respond to that. I'm
yes.
not on defense.
Yes, I know.
And I believe the public have a right to hear this.
Yes,
So that's why I'm impassioned about it.
Yes, I know you're passionate. I can see the passion. I just want you to know that we're not trying to single out any one department. This Public Safety Commission is responsible to oversee 4 departments. And I want to make that very clear. We're not here just to oversee the police department. We're here to oversee the fire department, the dispatch department, and the emergency services departments. We don't sing, we're not, I mean, some policies that you're gonna have, the fire department's not gonna have. It's just, that's the way it is. But this is not a commission that is gonna completely single out departments here. The question that I have is, and I don't want to put Chief Strahan you on the spot, and it's fine, but if the police can give us the general detail on complaints, why is it easy for you guys to do that? And is it just being educated on how to do it, or is it you don't have a lot of complaints, right? It's a new policy. I think if one department can supply us with the information, and it's not a big legal thing, the other department should be able to do. And same with the AMR too.
So we are not governed by post.
Yes, exactly.
We are governed by employee contracts, and we would be like the DPW. The DPW complaints wouldn't go to a board or anything like that. I'm not saying that that shouldn't happen, right? And I want to be clear about that.
Yes.
I'm not saying that that shouldn't happen. But when we start talking about adding a level that's not there for us right now, especially something like this, it's got to be done in a way that it's within the realm of our contract with the firefighters, with standard practices for employee relations with our HR department and stuff like that. And I just don't have those answers.
Oh, no, I wasn't trying to put you on the spot.
If you receive a complaint, that's different,
Yes,
right?
sure.
But to me, to forward you a complaint of an employee, when our procedure is to go to HR and not post, like I would want some input from not just me, but the other agencies that are involved, or especially our HR department and legal on that.
Yeah, and
Because I take my stepping stones when there's disciplinary problems. I work very closely with them. And so.
Absolutely. Yes, Deputy.
So the police departments are governed by the Worcester Telegram and Gazette Corporation versus Chief of Police of Worcester, which is a case that came out that said in particular that police officers are held to a higher standard, and that the police, the public has a right to know the disciplinary results of the police officers because they're held to that higher standard, and they're in a area where we have guns and we take people's rights away. The fire department's not held to that standard.
Sure, I understand. Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just want to understand the process so we could all be comfortable with it and we could keep it, flowing forward. And, that's why I personally ask these questions. I can't answer for the other commissioners. So thank you for the input. Is there any other questions on this topic tonight? Or comments? Okay, we thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it. I don't think we need to go into executive session. Does anybody on the commission feel we need to go into executive session? All right, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Before you adjourn,
Yes.
can I say something?
Yes, you absolutely can.
Ways and Means is tomorrow night.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
You can
Be there.
speak, Commissioner, at any
I
time.
just wanted to respond to the announcement that the chair made tonight, and I just want to say that we're working closely together here, and the goal is collectively to establish and to breathe life into a public safety commission that was conceived at a time when I was a select board member, and I sat on a charter commission. And we can't get lost in the weeds on how important it is. And so whatever happens with respect to the governance here, and I can't speak for everybody, but I think I can say the goal here is stewardship and oversight and fairness and equity and being a united front in promoting those values. I don't want to get on a soapbox, and I've been told that I can easily do that. I'm a public safety official. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of my career, and I'm proud of the fact that I'm held to a higher standard. what I think is important for the community to know is the risks involved in public safety. And then sometimes you see a soundbite on television, but you don't know what it feels like if your father doesn't ever come home, or your mother, or you're sued. To have to make split-second decisions in the name of the public is so difficult for people to understand sometimes. We have to take that seriously. I take that seriously. I don't come to this board with any other notion except that, I'm having a moment lately. I get confused when we talk about redemption, which I agree with, and building people up, which I want to try to do every day. But then, I read that bill, I gave a presentation on it, and it's full of ways to decertify. I understand the need for accountability. I've had to give discipline out. It's not fun. Any administrator in a police force knows how hard that is. And then to provide unity within a department and camaraderie that's necessary to get the job done, all in the name of the safety of our citizens. So, I'm reserving a lot of my comment right now because I think we can do a better job than we have been doing as a community. We can't control what the state does. We certainly can't control what Washington does. But at the local level, government can work if people are willing to engage in that old notion that's tested, communicating, collaborating, and conciliating with each other. And it's disturbing to watch what goes on in this community. As a citizen, it's disturbing to hear some of the things that I hear. We don't need to have a non-transparent government. We can do it all in a working session. And I'm going to call it out when I don't think it happens that way. If I have something constructively critical to say, I'll say it. But I'll say it with fairness and equity and respect. Because I think that's what everybody deserves who serves the public. The public deserves our support. We can't get it done without theirs. So I just want to thank Chairman Moscovici for all the conversation and all the work. But I can assure you that we will be robustly committed to, and please don't interpret this as I'm criticizing another commission. I'm saying that when we created it, it was necessary to create it. You can't have a mayoral form of government without something to have public safety oversight. We used a lot of what the city of Westfield had. They have more authority than this commission, but we still have a job to do. And we're going to do it. And I hope everybody's good with that. Because we're not going to win. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words. And if I could just add one more thing to that, it's not immoral to support your public safety. And that the conversation over the last month seems to be that public safety is immoral. And I have 30 officers, 2 in the academy, 32 officers, 10 dispatchers, and 3 civilians that hear that supporting the public safety is immoral. And that's not fair to those people.
I have to respond now because I'm in that academic mode. Without public safety, you don't have the arts. Without public safety, you don't have freedom of movement. Without public safety, you don't have the theater or the library or anything. The touchstone of a democracy is that we have public safety that's collaborative with its citizens. And in our conversations and in your presentations, I don't want to make the perfect the enemy of the good. We're never going to be perfect. We're all reaching for that goal. And you're absolutely right. And that's why I asked you if it was a moral issue before. Because in my view, I don't want to spend time playing to the cheap seats. I've served in every capacity you can think of in this community. Fighting with each other is a non-starter for me. I won't take sides, but when I have something to say, I'm going to say it. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you for that.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, I'm gonna call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Jarvis.
All right, this meeting is over. Thank you for everybody that participated.